Om. Om. Om Satgurubhyo Namaः. Om Shri Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaः. Prapanna Parijataya Stotravaitraikapanaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Gita Mrtaduhe Namaः.
Thank you, Saiji.
Namaste, sir.
Namaste. So, this is the 5th session. Looking forward to our discussions on chapter 4. And sometimes it is called Gnana Yoga, Gnana Karma, Sannyasa Yoga, different ways in which it is addressed. And I really appreciated various comments that you have posted in the LinkedIn group. Several of you are getting.
Sir, could you please speak out a little, a little aloud, sir?
Oh, I need to say more aloud?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I really appreciated various comments that we are doing. I mean, you are all posting on LinkedIn. I appreciated that. And I really feel the quality of comments is wonderful. And only request I would make again and again is we need to figure out how we are acting and bringing some of them into our own lives. I think that part of it, especially because our intellects are very, very sharp and the quality of people whom we have in the group is very high. It is very easy for us to bring out the philosophical perspectives, and some of you are very diligent in making sure what the learnings are and what your actions are going to be. And some of the other people, I'm pointing it out so that when the insights are excellent, but some of the actions are not very clear about what are you going to do, where are you going to apply. Because like my favorite quote sometimes is, there are two ways in which we can operate. Unless we are a Boeing company, rubber meets the road is where we will find the results. That means we need to operate on the ground level. That is, our ground is at body, our family, our workplace. And rubber meets the sky means making comments which are excellent intellectually. They can be very valuable for other people, but some of them may or may not actually be very meaningful for us. But, I will let you take it forward. Only thing I will just say, one quick comments for each of you as you go into discussion is for the self-development group, the concept of Swadharma may be something that was actually prominent in 3rd chapter. And here we talk about the whole idea of how are you going to apply it as, whatever actions as you do as yagna, the concept of yagna. I think those are some things which you might want to touch upon a little bit more. What does it mean to do a yagna? By the way, some of you, Kumudji and some of you might want to put it in mute. So how would you apply the concept of yagna? What does make your action a yagna? Okay, so that is something you might want to think about. Swadharma and yagna. And for communication group, when I looked at various reflections, I think there are some very nice points which you mentioned. But how would you use communication as a tool for, upholding dharma or upholding, maintaining social harmony or some things which have not been addressed? So if you can think about when you are discussing, how do you use communication to foster a collective understanding and in leading group dynamics, if group dynamics can be expanded, how would you use what you have learned here, akarma, karma, vikarma? When you look at it, how would you do that? For relationships, I was thinking that selfless action, which is what exactly yagna at some level means, and understanding the desires of ourselves and desires of other people in relationships. How would you acknowledge and understand the desires that arise in relationships? Because once you do that, then relationships are not just maintained, but you can uplift them spiritually through what you have learned in the chapter 4. So you might want to look at ego. What is the role of ego in relationships? How does our ego drive actions? How the lessons in this chapter can help us to transcend the personal biases. That would be very interesting if you can look at. Similarly, career development, the focus on our duty over personal gains or our actions for our own benefit and outcomes for ourselves, or they are focused on larger good. If you can look at that, if you can think about how the philosophy in this particular chapter can conflict with what we traditionally look at in the career metrics like promotions and rewards. How do the action, akarma, vikarma, how do they really conflict with the way in which we think about our career growth? So you might want to just integrate the spiritual growth with professional growth and how inner fulfillment will lead to your outward growth in the career. That is something that might be, I'm just provoking you. Think about some of these elements because those are part of fourth chapter. Leadership element, you are right. Several of you mentioned leaders are seen as role models whose actions should inspire other people. But while this captures what you might call a idealistic model of leadership, what are some practical challenges that you feel as a leader, as you experience or people around you are experience in implementing those ideals in a competitive situations that we face at workplace? So you might want to think about how as a leader you need to engage in self-reflection and continuous learning to stay more effective and to be grounded in a ethical way. Youth development, physical activity, duty, what are your actions? That is something that you can touch upon a little bit more. So what it means is, how do you nurture resilience and adaptability? Resilience here I'm using as, coming back again and again after the failure with learning from failure and some of them and finding purpose and direction in life. How our actions could help us to find more meaning and actions, especially with the mental health of youth being something that is becoming more and more important these days. how would we help youth to become healthy, and how do their actions can nurture resilience and adaptability, as we talked about. The last two, the women's development, I think women's empowerment through leadership and service is something that you touched upon. While it is very vital, what are some specific challenges women face in different contexts? Even in India or United States or Europe or Malaysia, some of you are from, how the different cultural contexts that you live in, they allow you to apply some of these teachings in a woman's life. So societal structures and conflicts that the women have as you, that will be very interesting. And the last one, but not the least one, the education. How would you apply these principles, the kind of different kinds of actions, concept of yagna, some of them, how would you integrate in the educational system as a teacher or as a administrator or as a convener? So whether it is innovative pedagogy or different kinds of educational methodologies, how would you help them to develop experiential learning for students? That would be very good, because as you notice, our setup, our program is essentially, we are trying to do it as experiential learning based. So how would you bring that experiential learning in in the educational system that you are involved in, wherever you are a professor or wherever you are a lecturer or a teacher or coach, some of them, if you can figure out some of them. Those are some quick things. Instead of giving specific questions, I'm just provoking you in these areas. So maybe you can go back into your groups. One couple of suggestions to shake up your stuff also, if you want to. Some of you who have been leading the group, you might want to even think about how would you let other people also learn to lead? How would you facilitate leading where you can encourage some other people in your group who are not what you call leaders right now? How would you encourage them to lead? How would you encourage them to report out? Some of it. Begin to think about how you can develop leadership and participation and communication and relationships. Those are some provocations from me. So it is almost quarter hour before the hour for me, 6:45 here. So that means it is 7:15. So if you can go into your groups and spend your time and come back, I look forward to seeing you. Did you have good group discussions?
Yes, I think it was good.
Excellent. We are not all back, I guess. Some of them are still in the group meetings. Yeah,
You
go
can
ahead.
send the meeting time, is it, in a break room?
Yeah, some of them are still in the break room, I guess.
Yeah, so they'll be joining
They'll be joining.
around
Okay.
a few seconds.
Okay.
Closed it. Yeah, they're joining.
I have a hard stop today, so if it's okay with everyone, I don't mind representing the youth to start with whenever you hand it off, Prasadji.
Sounds good. I think Atulji has a hand up, and after
Yeah,
that,
so I was just thinking, I'm going to talk from the leadership group perspective. Whenever you say, I can start talking.
so by the way, I'm going by hands that are up. So it is, if you have not handed up and then I'm watching, I'm just following that particular one, if you don't mind. So if you start talking without this, I wouldn't know. So right now, I have seen Atulji and Sundarji, Shyamji, three of them. And now I will consider that you have raised a hand. If you can just put it up, I'll remember. Because when I see various faces, I will not know exactly who has raised the hands. That's why I'm just going by whose hands are raised. So,
So
somebody said they have a hard stop, they want to start. I could not see the name or I could not recognize who the person is. Who said
That was me. That was me, Sundar.
me, Sundar. Okay. That Sundar I could recognize. Me, I could not recognize. I'm struggling with my own me. So I couldn't find the second me in the same group. So, all right. So is that okay, Atulji? Let Sundarji goes first.
sure.
Okay. So first Sundarji and then Atul, then Shyam, and then I think there are other people will take it forward. So please, Sundarji, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you all. Hari Om, Namaste. The group is marked for the last couple of weeks by more questions than answers, which is a good thing. At the end, in chapter 4, it does say Pariprashnena Sevaya. So we did start with Lakshmiji asking, how do we communicate this concept of fulfillment? Because throughout the chapter 4, that concept keeps coming up, Prashantatma, and even in chapter 3, Atmaneva Atmanatushta, this topic keeps coming up. How does one bring this concept to youth? Clearly, we as those who have grown up and lived through the ups and downs of life, it is easier for us to conclude that happiness and peace of mind is not dependent on objects, although even we fall off the wagon many times. But when it comes to youth, how do we take that and communicate that? That was a topic that came up. This concept of approaching a guru automatically brings up the question of how do I find the right guru? I think in principle, people, all of us here, I think we are generally agreed that we must have a guru. We must, be engaged in some form of guru seva, and we must bring our curiosity to play. But from a man of the world perspective, the question comes up is, okay, how do I know I'm finding the right guru? Right? So that is a legitimate challenge that is out there. The third point that comes up is that this concept of equipoise, because again, when you say Prashantatma Vigata Bhihi, it is really that samatvam that came up in chapter 2 and 3. How does one inculcate that spirit in the youngsters? So that continues to be a challenge. Some of the discussion led to the concept that chapter 4 is actually quite clear in one of its this thing, saying that even in this world you cannot gain anything without self-discipline, or if you're ridden with doubts and lack of faith. Even in this world, whether it is in the world of science or world of humanities or sports or whatever it is, people succeed by finding the right coach, by finding the right guru, and as they evolve through that coaching, they go on to find bigger and better coaches, right? So that itself is there, and nobody enters into a field filled with doubt. All of us are here, we are curious, but we are not filled with doubt that Gita is not going to give me. Because if that is how we are here, then in some ways we are wasting our time. So therefore, in some ways, this concept in the Gita is really a reflection of the reality of the world. Then when you go on, the challenge in this world is people suffer from lack of willpower. And all of us blame our failures on the fact that we can't keep up with a certain practice. And in fact, the 12 yajnas that are prescribed in chapter 4 really become the window into building that. It starts from the smallest thing like pratyahara, to regulating the breath, and then it goes on to various other, and including, considering the meal itself as a yajna. That in my everyday meal,
which group are you, Sundar?
youth
Group. Okay.
Yes, that's why that's why I said there are more questions than answers.
Okay.
If I missed anything, please post in the chat.
Those are some wonderful reflections that I'm hearing from you. The idea of a guru, teacher, in the 21st century, unless we are in a spiritual path, sometimes we look for somebody who can guide us. That can be, many times for youth, it becomes a peer group. Somebody whom we like, somebody who is a slightly older, or somebody who is maybe younger, but they are more mature, somebody who can articulate clearly that I'm struggling to articulate. So they become the influencer in our life. As a matter of fact, these days, instead of an adult or instead of a teacher, instead of a person who is in a teaching or in a spiritual tradition, we generally resort to opinions of our other youth, other people in our clique or in our group, small group if you want. The most important part is in this chapter, if we were to really look at, is how do you identify a right mentor or a right person to follow or a right guru, depending on different words. For the youth, they may not use same words, but you think about it. The key, I think he says, is who are the people who can help me to make the right decisions. My path that gives happiness, and that my path that gives certain clarity that I'm doing my swadharma. And especially if we bring the concept of yagna, I'm doing what I'm doing that will make me feel like I have contributed to the larger good, not just for my selfish purposes. I think if we can think about it from that angle, that would be excellent. And the resilience point which you brought up, Sundarji, the idea of how do I actually learn from my failures? I think the resilience comes only when I'm learning instead of judging. Oh, that was terrible. I didn't mean to do that. I feel upset that I ended up doing this, or I'm guilty of doing that. All those feelings, I call them our internal GPS system: guilt, pride, and shame. Just like technologically, we have a GPS that will guide our car or motorcycle or wherever we want to lead. I feel the internal GPS system, the societal GPS system, seem to activate and prevent our learning. So what stops our resilience, whether we are youth or whether we are adults, is some of these feelings, emotional feelings, become overwhelming. And unfortunately, we think that, yeah, we should feel guilty. We should feel upset. You did something that you are punished for it. But unfortunately, some of these feelings will block our learning. So it is important to recognize that resilience comes when we look at what can I learn from my mistakes, What can I learn from my successes? Both. If we do it, then it will lead our youth to get onto a growth path and clarify what is the karma that I am doing and what is the vikarma, which should something that is not appropriate for me to do. Would not, it is counter intuitive from the either Gita perspective or from my own perspective or just akarma. Let me wait. And finally, being able to see karma in akarma in karma. I think those are some things that will consciously come in. I will just use the phrase which my colleague Raghu Padmanabhan has been bringing it to my attention. He calls it, there is a cycle: awareness, concentration, and equanimity. You use the word equipoise. So sometimes we may have to be consciously aware of the actions we are taking and pay attention to it long enough so that it becomes dharana, it becomes a concentration. And then we will develop the equanimity. Sometimes we may have to start with equanimity or equipoise. Yogastha Kuru Karmani, again, second chapter. Do it from that state. That will give me the awareness. And out of that, I can let go of my ADHD or whatever other mental things I can let go. I can concentrate on the topic in my hand and I can pay sufficient attention. So we will elaborate on that. Thank you, Sundarji. So Atul, back to you.
Namaskar. I'm talking about leadership, and the few points I'll be talking, and if I miss anything, then my apologies in advance. First thing we discussed that all these 5 areas, what we talk about: relationship, career, communication, education, self-development, they are very much intertwined with leadership. We cannot segregate leadership from any one of them. To be a good leader, you have to have better relationship, you have to have a better communication, you have to be well educated, well learned. You should always look for self-development. So this was the first point came into the group discussion. And the second point group discussion came how Arjun was there, like what are the stages which we all go through it and how we will be talking about it, like how Arjun, he was in comfort zone, went to the fear zone, went to the knowledge zone, went to the growth zone. Then of course we have not discussed much about final Anandamaya or the enlightenment. So we all go through these stages, and the leader area is to make sure that a person at which stage they are. Maybe many people are in comfort zone. They don't want to get into a fear zone. Hey, I need to learn AIML, I need to learn LLM, or I need to learn latest stuff. So how to bring them from comfort zone to challenge them and remove the fear and get them knowledgeable, go do it. Then we identified a very simple framework. You all have heard of AEIOU, which I understand the way. First, A is important. You have to grab the attention of a person. Grabbing the attention is very important. Once you have grabbed the attention, A, you are succeeded. Go for E, is engage the person. Yes, now person is responding, asking questions and all of them. Once he does that, then go for I. I give more insight. Insight means the real crux. Why this is the insight. And U is the last O and U are interchange. U is make him understand what is in for him, what is in there for society, what is there for everybody. If you can make them the understand, then give them the ownership, make them O. So A, attention, E, engagement, I, give the insight, U is understand, then ownership. This framework, we used it and we found that it could be a very step. So some of us are coaches, and they found, yes, that has been, the client knows everything. They have a lot of stuff. Once you put the framework, they'll be able to do it. Then we talk about, probably some of you have read Prasadji's LinkedIn profile, that mentor, advisor, therapist. So we have to play this role in different stages of somebody. Sometimes you're mentor, been there, done it, and this is how you do it. Advisor, yes, I have not been there, but I know how to be there. Advisor role, therapist role. So these are the key things we discussed. I think I tried to cover maybe there was one example of Virat Kohli was discussed that how he could hit 28 runs in 8 balls with all this mental strengthness, inaction in action. That's what came up. That's all
Thank
from
you.
my side. Back to you.
Yeah, beautifully done. And I saw the Virat Kohli example already, but I hope Atulji and Sundarji and all other people, I hope you are putting some of these notes into LinkedIn as well so that we can read, because AAIOU, it's excellent. So some of
I'll
these
put it.
kinds of wonderful tools and your insights, if you can please take time, each group to post it, it will be great.
I will post it.
So the leadership, obviously you brought a very important point, Atulji, the idea of whatever is on the top of our mind. See, the reason why we are asking you to take a area is because that area becomes the what you might call set of lens or a glasses that you put on your eyes through which you will look at everything that is going on. But at the same time, we are in a larger group so that we can listen and say, this you called it a leadership insight. I can use it for self-development, or I can use it for women, or I can use it for some other things. That is what the whole idea is about. One lesson can be applied in multiple ways. So just like what is called a one white light, when it goes through the prism, it can give you 7 different colors. But whatever color you are fascinated by, use that and you will get everything else also with it. But you will be able to make a contribution in the area of leadership. I think you have explained beautifully. The whole idea of leadership is about taking conscious action and doing that conscious action, like Virat Kohli example, which you have written up also, is recognizing the akarma in karma, like a karma in akarma. I think that is what I learned from the Virat Kohli. I prepared all my training. Things are there when there are, 18 runs or so many runs that you have. But when you are ready and you are in the equipoise state, equanimous state, when you are ready, curious, that is, by the way, the right kartrutva bhavam was the one which you explained through the Virat Kohli state of mind. I am not coming from, I will make it happen, or I'm not coming from, oh my God, I'm going to make my team lose this particular game. I'm ready, I'm curious, I'm interested, I have trained myself very well, and I will try to deal with the ball that comes to me as, let me do the best I can in that context. Then magic can happen. I think that is a sense of leadership. So I really appreciate that. And I think the bonus of AAIOU, I would love to see more about it. Once you write it up, I will also try to
I will do that.
see, and
Thank you.
then maybe take it. Thank you. So Shyamji.
Yes, thank you. I'm sharing some points shared by Pavanji, Sunanda, Sheetal, Tara, and Preeti. So I hope I'm not missing it. Anything missed out, please call it out. I think engaging conversation, all of us. Key questions that are coming up in our minds is, how do we seek the right wisdom? I think that chapter 4 talks us about teachers, Guru Parampara, Guru Shishya Parampara, and so on. But in practical day-to-day life, we have to constantly keep this in mind.
Can you
Second
speak a little
thing
bit louder,
was about
Shyam?
humility.
Yeah.
Sure.
Humility.
Am I louder? Is it better now?
Yeah.
Is it better now? Am I clear?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. The second point that came out also was the amount of humility that is required as we are communicating. which implies that we are understanding the nuances of a context, nuances of a problem, and hence not only just the knowledge, but also really understanding what is the problem and how do we try to solve for it. The other piece that is coming out is from a practical standpoint is we are in situations many a time that sometimes we believe we are the domain expert, maybe the guru, and maybe you're having people who are part of your team or you're engaging with who are, let's say, listening or depending on your guidance. How do we communicate effectively in cases when that communication or transmission not happening in the right way? So this is another, another question that's pondering in my mind is how do you know that you're trying to find what is the authentic right knowledge? Because as you rightfully said, I have a lot of sources of data, I have information on books, channels, social media, and so on. How do you know what is the right or authentic information? And one other critical one is when is the time for taking a certain action? And of course, with the action, communication, you also have to be responsible for the consequences of the action that you take. So, a lot of questions, but a lot of practical questions that came out in our conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Shyamji. See, there are, I think, when communication has a lot of questions, that makes the conversation very interesting. It becomes dialogical. If I have a lot of answers, then it will only become a unidirectional. You know, like I could sit down and talk and give a lecture on something on the 4th chapter for 1 hour. You will get several viewpoints, but you won't get your individual questions answered. So when the communication is interactive, bidirectional, chances are the questions become the lenses through which we look at the world. Like somebody said, any day I would love to go away from a lecture with a one good question rather than 5 great answers. Why? Because answers shut down the inquiry. Questions open up a new path of inquiry. So actually, even the word, if you look at the etymology of the word inquiry, means being in the question, in the query. Right? So, in Bhagavad Gita, if you really look at it and say, the query that we need to be, inquiry that we need to be, is the communication that we are engaged with, is it being done as a yagna? That means, am I choosing my words carefully? Am I speaking with intent? And what can be that intent? Am I clear that my sankalpam, my intent is to uplift and benefit other people through my communication, not just myself. But when I am speaking, can I speak with humility? I think that's what you used also. Can I speak with a certain respect and trust? Am I engendering trust in my communication? Are other people feeling that they are respected, listened to, and responded with appropriate, appropriate tenor, appropriate respect, and appropriate listening? When I pay attention to that, my every communication becomes a yagna. And every communication leads to a meaningful question that I address for myself. I don't become a teacher, I don't become a mentor, I don't become a professor for other people. I am actually addressing it for myself. That's the reason why, for example, many of the times when you are commenting on it, I am actually asking you, Start with what did I learn? What actions am I taking? Then your actions and your learnings will guide other people very quickly. So when I am the learner, the teacher within me actually gets, respected and will also come out. But when I am the teacher, just like, when there are too many teachers, there are very few learners, so you need to recognize only when I am able to be the learner, the teacher in me gets developed. Same thing, when I am a good listener, my talking becomes very influential and inspiring to other people. Thank you very much. Arabindoji.
Yes, sir. Just a minute. Okay. These are some of the key points that I made note of while discussing with our group. This group is for self-development. We were talking of Jnana Karma Samnyasa Yoga. So we understood for self-development, we dealt into the concept of sacrifice or Sharanagati, and how to gain, how in order to gain knowledge, we have to surrender. Surrender what? Surrender, jnana, yajna. What we have to surrender in the yajna, jnana yajna, is our ego. Letting go of our own egos and, the andhakara of our ego, the me in it, and then learn. That is one of the key highlights for me. And number two was, karma, akarma, vikarma. Like somebody took example of Virat Kohli, I took the example of Sachin Tendulkar. When he does it so effortlessly that he is actually not doing anything. That is akarma. But in the akarma, his karma lies, and in his karma lies is akarma. So that was the analogy we used as well. And then we came to the point of learning, and how learning never stops, and how we have to constantly keep on learning, upgrading ourselves, and so on and so forth. Keeping that curiosity alive, and keep the learning aspect of it alive throughout life. And when we start learning, everything starts opening up, and the curiosity is what the group compared to the Jnanagni, which lights up the entire thing and burns down, the andhakara of Ajnanam. So these are some of the points that we discussed about. Never stop learning, always maintain curiosity, actionable takeaways. Harshit, Sagarji explained from their real life examples, and Deepika ma'am also gave very good analogies about the sacrifices that we have to make in the Jnanagni, and how to overcome that ego. Though we all agreed that it is not, like an instant process or an overnight process kind of a thing. We have to keep at it, and keep the abhyasa going on to gain more and more knowledge. So that's about 2.5 minutes. Deepika ji, I hope I covered everything. Is there anything else that needs to be covered?
And what is the group you are representing?
Self-development.
Excellent.
That's all, sir. That's about 2 minutes, 40 seconds from my side, and I'm done.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And see, you brought up a very, very important point. How do we use our Jnanagni to burn down the ignorance? Of course, Jnana, the word Jnanam, is connected with Vijnanam, Prajna. In Bhagavad Gita, different places that is used a lot.
Yes.
Of course, it is a easy and simple translation that people do is Jnana means knowledge. In Gita context, Jnana is never knowledge that we talk about in the current times, data, information, knowledge, and wisdom. No, that is not the hierarchy that they use. Jnanam is more connected with knowing rather than knowledge. It is not a noun, but it is a verb, present continuous process of engaging in learning something. And also, how does what you learn give you a point of view. So that means Gnanam can also be translated as perspective that we have, the worldview with which we act, the worldview that we are developing as we are learning. When what we learn shapes our perspective, then it becomes Gnana Agni. Why? The role of the Agni is to burn down whatever is put into it. When we have that perspective that I can deal with what I have, whatever comes to my life, then developing the self becomes a process of living your life mindfully with your eyes open and consciously. Whatever we do, that will do. Even, there are other slokas where this concept comes in. When I am able to really be aware, because Gnanagni is a constant awareness, continuous awareness. Continuous. So when I am present and when I am paying attention on a continuous basis, that constant attention that I am paying attention, I'm aware of, and with what I'm living into, that gives me the equanimity. There is nothing else I need to do. Again, coming back to the cycle, awareness leads to attention or concentration. And when I'm aware and attentive, then that gives me the state of mind of equipoise or equanimity or certain sthitaprajna state. In that, whatever action I take, it is like a fire, that fire of attention, fire of awareness, everything else burns up. In that, in the one sloka, he says, I'm going to burn up my prarabdha karma. Prarabdaya samarpitam swavapuhu. In Shankaracharya comments in one of the slokas, he says, my prarabdha karma, that means I am the doer, I got all this prarabdham, it goes away. Why? Because at some level you are doing the karma tyagam by being with that state of awareness. Self-development leading to self-awareness and self-realization happens when we are operating with that Gnanagni. Thank you very much for your insights. Ramanji.
Yes. We are actually discussing about education theme.
Okay.
So education, specifically we try to see that how a guy gets self-reliant. So education, and we discuss education as like, in school or colleges. Also, one viewpoint came in organizations, right? In terms of what education. So
Yeah.
before I bring those nuances in chapter 4, in the context of chapter 4 theme education. So in chapter 4, the synthesis over the last 3 discussions that we found, because chapter 4 focuses on Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga. So so the synthesis that we see, that here clearly what is karma, the karmana gahana gati. So that particular sloka or verse that attracted the attention. Also, the definition of karma yogi comes in this particular chapter. So the idea is in education, when we are debating, we also try to debate, should it go into education as a curriculum or as a separate study, body of knowledge where students learn, right? Maybe as a non-detail or SUPW, right? A third point also we try to discuss, why to burden in terms of school when there are so many curriculums? Why not this can also be started in family, the home, right? Maybe every 5 minutes in a day, if a student gets to know. So the third point also comes, what is to be learned or educated, the curriculum part. So the idea was that we were discussing the essence of the things, essence of the Gita instead of, right? Because as a man grows, he will have faculty to learn and remember. So here the idea was a student, how he can be free, worryless while preparing for the exam. So how those aspects can be imbibed in students so that he prepares in a very happy mind. So here the essence of Karma Yogi comes, and the two essential elements of that, Shraddha and Sanyam. In one of the sloka, it discusses. So the faith in what one does, right, as a Swadharma. So with Shraddha, he studies, and also with Sanyam, a kind of no control on the senses. So Karma Yogi is defined here specifically how in educational system that essence can be inculcated in the students, that they can function as a Karma Yogi. Karma Yogi is one who will be really contented with whatever he gets answered. He will be free from jealousy. He will be free from all the opposites of, you can say, no, joy and grief. A kind of neither elated in success nor dejected in failure. So with this kind of ideas that a student in education can be inculcated. In the process, here he talks of like that three karma, Prasadji, that you are talking. I was reading Vinoba Bhave. I think I will bring in that the talks on Gita. So they are the karma.
Ramanji, can you bring them up in your writing? Because it is I'm learning so much from what you are saying, and I think this is a small forum for you, but it would be fantastic if you can write about it on LinkedIn, a lot more elaboration, especially what you are learning from Vinoba Bhave, what you are learning from other people as well. But for now, I request you to
Sure.
come to an
Thank you.
end, and then
Thank you.
we'll take
Sure,
it further.
so just to
I'm learning.
summarize, in between lot many sacrifices are explained by the God to Arjuna. So here sacrifices essentially I say them as no, they are bikarma, like the puja, offering, the japa, dhyana, meditation, pranayam. So those are, though translated as forbidden action or prohibited action, they are akarma which complements your karma. And when you act as a karma yogi, if you outwardly active, you are inwardly calm, you are a karma yogi. And if you are inwardly active and outwardly calm, you are a kind of sannyasi. So the synthesis of sannyasa and yoga in karma yogi. So this is what the learning for education. And I have put also in the our LinkedIn group, and I will elaborate also, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We have some wonderful, so many scholars, extraordinary people in this group. I'm grateful for various people whom we have. Because we have been trying to do it in 1.5 hours, several times we go over 15-20 minutes. Some people who can stay, they are able to stay. And let me just, I won't elaborate the points which you said. Only point which was not clear to me, I will talk about. The rest of it, I think when we listen to the tape again, the video again, we will hear. What I'm saying is, teach. If you are a professor, if you are a teacher, if you are a parent, to educate other people, teach as if the process you are engaged in is itself a yagna. That means you have to sacrifice time without worrying whether they learnt it or not. Do it with full passion. Do it with total commitment as a yagna. I'm doing it for all these students who are all these people. However, whatever they get, let it be Bhagavate Ichcha, and I'm doing my 100%. And I am doing, and similarly, do your teaching, the effort you put in as a yagna, time that you are dedicating as a yagna, sometimes the personal comfort that you sacrificed to gain the wisdom, knowledge and skills that you are gaining through this educational process. You do it as a yagna so that it's all going for the betterment of the students and betterment of the school and betterment of the society. So if you can focus on that, and the last point I'll make, this also connects with the other groups as well, but I'll put it in here. How am I eating? What am I putting into my stomach? How do I consume what I consume? Am I doing it mindful eating or mindless eating? And mindful engagement when I'm listening and mindless engagement. So all of these, if you can begin to look at, just like a leadership can be a thread that can go through all the groups, similarly you can see educare, the education, the learning process can also become a lens through which we can go. Thank you. Anantji, somebody else had a hand up after that. They can do it, but we are getting to Anantji's. I think is it the last group, or there are some more groups which need to report?
Yeah, thank you. I think we are the last group, and I represent
Suresh, we had a
career and
question
growth.
later, it looks like, after that, after yours, Anand. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm representing career and growth group. So there are four of us, Kiran, Satyesh, Gyaneshwar, and myself. And we had a very good discussion. And so first we talked about, in the corporate world, how we tend to be, the pressure is to be results oriented, and a lot of it is, outside in. And we talked about, survivability and the usual pressures thereof. And Kiran had some good points in the way of, the lessons from the chapter 4 are more about experiencing rather than just knowing about it. And he elaborated on how we might do that and how he has been trying to apply. And he also talked about the shift in attitude that it brings in how they go about in conducting their day-to-day in their career. And and the point I really liked in what he said is, all of this in his chapter 4 is not about dialogue and debate. It's more to internalize and to consciously live through the day as you go about your career. So, then Satyesh resonated a lot with Nimitta Matra aspect of it. He talked about it through multiple lenses and had, different perspective of how he has been experiencing or how he tends to live the Nimitramat aspect of it. So then Gyaneshwar, talked about the importance of knowledge transfer, which Krishna talks in the beginning, right? Gyaneshwar works in the government sector, and where knowledge transfer and the continuity is very important. So that resonated with him very much, and he talked about the importance of non-prejudiced approach to action. So then we had a very good discussion about imposter syndrome and how, where it comes from and how the lessons from chapter 4 help with imposter syndrome. Yeah, so these are, some of the key discussions. If I have missed anything, please bring it up either in LinkedIn or in the chat. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. I really love the kind of conversations each of your groups are having. And I think the application of what you are saying and connecting to the imposter syndrome is excellent. And several of what you pointed out, whether it is knowledge transfer or whether it is looking at various roles that we play. How do we do those roles with a certain karma sannyasa feeling, and also certain way. I am not the one who is doing, I'm just representative, like a servant leader concept. If you can do whatever you are doing, not as I am doing it with arrogance, but I'm given the opportunity to serve you, kind of a perspective will be very good. All of these connect with what you might call the Kshetra concept. In the 13th chapter, we will talk a lot more about the field, but if you look at your workplace as a field for professional action, a field of professional action, then you can then you can look at how am I applying my knowledge and skills to perform my duties while staying detached from the outcomes, focusing on the integrity of the work process itself. If we can do it from that state, whether I am creating something, serving somebody, whether I am doing the knowledge, doing the analysis, or doing the knowledge transfer, when I pay attention to it to the best of my capability without having the Kartrutva Bhavam or Bhoktrutva Bhavam, then it becomes noticed very quickly. Our career development takes place because our customers, our peer group, our subordinates, and our bosses will notice the attitude of gratitude that you are demonstrating. So thank you for that, Anandji. Suresh has a question. Suresh ji.
Yeah, namaste. This is my first time joining, so I really enjoyed the conversation. So I was part of the relationship group, and we had a good discussion. We didn't really have any specific person to report out, but I can just quickly share. So we had Gaganji, Pradeep ji, and myself, three of us were there. And Gagan ji really brought out the point of equipoise, right? And the equanimity, which is not really mentioned in this chapter, but it's like the foundation in chapter 2. And then Pradeep ji had many questions about, I think we all had different levels of experience with Gita, right? And so he had many questions about application, right? Which is like what the whole purpose of this group was. And then we talked through a few of the verses that might be helpful. So one of the verses was the Brahmarpanam Brahmahavihi, Brahmagno Brahmanahutam. To be able to, I personally kind of use that before a meal, and that helps you to strengthen the relationship by incorporating the attitude of gratitude, or who is actually kind of making who has enabled that meal to be made, and how we are kind of offering it. And then we had other discussions around the yajna concept, right? And Gaganji had good point about how parenting is a great yajna, right? And we don't often know what the results are. Children might actually kind of like achieve, but we are trying to be in that helpful state for them. And so there were a couple of like takeaways. I think that relationships, when they are not transactional, right, when they are kind of done from the mode of selfless kind of action, which is what chapter 4 kind of prescribes, then the relationships kind of get strengthened, even though you're not thinking of it as as trying to strengthen it. And then how we each can bring that attitude of gratitude, right, towards how other people are helping us. So moving from like I to we to you is like a good way to strengthen relationships. Gaganji and Pradeepji, anything if I missed, please let me know. And this is my first time, so I wasn't sure of all the ground rules.
You did a great job, Sureshji. By the way, Sureshji is very involved in a larger other groups. There are very active groups in United States that is taking place. He has developed some GPT kind of artificial intelligence applied to Gita. He is working on Arjuna's questions, some of them as well. There is a project he is working with, and I came to know of him because next month we have a 3-day Gita conference in Seattle, Washington, where he and I both will be there. And in that context, I was talking to him and he came. So I appreciate you jumping in and doing this. To elaborate on some of the kinds of things in relationships, you brought up very important and interesting points. One more I will add is relationships means conflicts. That is what for many people that come up. Whenever there are two people, there are probably 3 opinions at the minimum. Your opinion, my opinion, and the real right opinion or other, the world's opinion, minimum. And of course, if we are generally Indians, then chances are I will have 3 opinions and you will have 3 opinions. And by the end of it, we will have 10 opinions for the world to learn from it, whether we took it or not. So in that context, the Bhagavad Gita, again, it says, how can I actually use the Gita to bring in empathy and compassion in my relationship? So to a certain extent, when you look at the Gnana Sannyasam and Karma Sannyasam, because that is the name of the chapter if you really look at it, let go of my attachment to be the boss in the relationship or be the teacher in the relationship. When I can act from that particular place of bringing Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, Upeksha, you talk about Maitra, Karuna, Evacha, and then do whatever you do, as Sureshji mentioned, with the concept of Brahmarpanam. So, who is the one who is doing the Arpanam? Who is the person who is in Havan? Who is the person who is enjoying it? So all of them are myself. In the relationship, everybody that exists is nothing but the deeper divine that is pervading me, is pervading others. So if I can come from a respect, respect again is an interesting word in English. Re-spicere, if you look at etymology. Spicere means to look. Re means again. That means to look again freshly. That is what the real meaning of respect is. That means I am looking at each other with respect. And that is what Gita essentially says. Look at other person as the Brahman. Look at other person, deal with them with a certain way of respect. When I can do it, when I can have empathy, not sympathy, by the way. Sympathy means if I find somebody in the muck or in the well, I throw a rope and bring them out of that well. That is empathy. But if I also get into the well with them and engage with them, that is sympathy. So, what Bhagavad Gita says many times is that you need to be empathetical towards people. It doesn't say sympathy, because then you will get into muckety muck yourself, and emotional conflict can overtake both of you. That is where you need to do the Karma Sannyasa Yoga. That is where you need to let go of you saying, I don't need to necessarily know. I don't need to be where you are, but I can be empathetic to you. That means I might not have gone through the same experience you have gone through, but I still will empathize with you. I still will be compassionate with you. And together we can figure out a way to do it. Why am I bringing that up? Is several times people we have in relation. You don't know what I'm going through. You don't know what my background is. You have never gone through what I have gone through. How dare you try to give me that advice? That comes up very often in relationships. That is where it comes down to the perspective. You are saying, no, I don't know individually what you have gone through, but the divine within me, divine within you, I think we are coming from the same place. And let me work with you with Maitri and Karuna in such a way both of us can become better. If we can take that type of attitude, then chances are we will take it to much deeper, much more meaningful level. So with that, today, again, we have gone 15 minutes. I think we were over, we were really thinking 90 minutes is very good, but it is every week it is turning out to be at least 15 minutes over. But let me stop that. Only thing I'll say is think about the 5th chapter again with a certain sense of, again, what am I learning? What am I applying? We are doing the karma yagna, not a gnana yagna. That means we are not trying to understand what Krishna said to Arjuna. We are the Arjuna. You become the Arjuna in this context. If I am, what am I learning? What is my Kurukshetra? What can I take away and apply it? If you can keep that in mind, then whatever you are saying will have 100 times more value. So thank you very much and have a wonderful, wonderful week. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Please connect with your team members, connect with your other people, and figure out a way. Why are they not here? Maybe they need some help. Maybe they need your communication with them. Maybe they need your support. So take care of your other people and be with them and figure out a way in which you can bring some of your life experience and your own personal actions and interpretations to it. Thank you and namaste.
Thank you, everyone.
And if any of you want to stay and ask questions, you are welcome. But otherwise, we will say bye. Yes, it is okay to bring in new people at this stage.